You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
What is going on, Los Angeles, and welcome to the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network, your destination for Los Angeles football. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyer, and I'm actually coming to you live from snowy, cold Colorado out here for the holidays visiting family. The better half of the show, the madman Jamal Madley, still in beautiful Los Angeles, nice and sunny. I was there this morning, bright and early. But now I'm on halfway across the country. But my friend, how are you? Happy Monday, Victory Monday. This is your Chargers edition of the LA Football Show. So excited to talk about Victory Monday, get all into it. But how you doing, my friend?
Doing well, Rye. Excited to talk about this game and wishing you and your family and all of our terrific viewers and listeners very happy holidays. We are officially in Christmas week here with Christmas coming up on Sunday and Christmas Eve on Saturday. So just wishing everyone a very happy holidays. We're in the teeth of it now and hope you're getting a chance to spend time with loved ones, friends, family, and all your near and dear ones. So this is my favorite time of year. Everyone just seems so happy. The lights are bright and my favorite. I wish all year could be this holiday season. I wish all 12 months could be November and December. I think our world would be a very different place if that were the case.
I could not agree more. Absolutely love it. As much as I love LA, and I do, I've lived there now, 15 years. It's home. It's where I met my wife. We had our daughter. So our family has been built there. My wife's family obviously has history in LA, but our business, you and I's Jamal, is built here in LA. So I absolutely love it. And LA does a really good job of creating cool Christmas experiences. They have all the tree lighting stuff. They have, Christmas Tree Lane in Pasadena. They have the Torrance lights. You have all these different stuff going on, all the, Knott's Merry Farm, Universal Studios. Like there's tons of stuff to do, but there's something about cold and snow that just always feels a little more Christmassy. So I love that I always get a chance to come back to visit my family in Colorado. We do it every year. And ironically enough, Jamal, this is crazy. Grew up here my entire life. 18 years lived here before moving out to LA. But still, since living in LA, I come back. This is the one holiday. We spend every other holiday with my wife's parents, but Christmas we spend here. We've never once spent Christmas actually in the mountains. I live outside of Denver, or my parents live outside of Denver. And so finally, this is the first year ever. We are our friends, my childhood best friend. I was his best man. He was my best man. His parents own a cabin up in Grand Lake, Colorado. So we were actually going to go and spend the entire actual Christmas. We're going up Thursday, staying up there till Monday and spending Christmas in a cabin in the mountains, entrenched in snow. So I'm excited for that because we've never done it, which is as crazy as it seems, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's amazing. Good for you guys. And there's something, Ryan, we had talked about this. I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming a couple weeks ago, and there's just something really magical about having a white Christmas. Christmas doesn't feel like Christmas without snow and the cold. And I guess I'm speaking like someone who was born and raised in Los Angeles and has seen snow less than 10 times in my life. So people on the East Coast and in very cold places are like, dude, what are you talking about? You're really revealing your naivete on this subject. But there's something to you spend a month or a few weeks during December and January in the snow, I think is something that really, I think, centers you and makes you feel live and whole and recharges you.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so beautiful about LA, right? We can go for 2 weeks, enjoy the cold, and then go back to our 60s in comfort. So it's like, it's the best of both worlds. So I get to spend now 10 days out here and then we'll be back. So, Jamal, I won't do it this show because I want to both of us do some prep reconnaissance, but just for all the listeners to know, I think we're going to do it essentially four more shows before Christmas. So we'll do our, Chargers, Rams, Trojans, Bruins before Christmas. And I think we should do a segment of our top favorite holiday movies because me and me are both big movie guys. A little off from football. We can take a little break for 5 minutes or so. So Chargers fans out there, make sure to tune back in for our preview show later in the week. So we'll do a little Christmas segment of that. But now before getting into this great 17-14 win, obviously got to mention sponsor of the show, our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV. Get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. A lot of big bets out there recently, a lot of fun parlays. I had some fun with some, and you can get all in on the action. It's betonline.ag, promo code BELIEVE. All right, Jamal. So I'm trying to think if we really talked much right after this game. Very briefly, not a whole lot, but we really haven't discussed the game at all. So this is the first time. I feel like a lot of games we kind of text back and forth throughout it, or we do a live show afterwards, but we really haven't gotten into it. So really excited to hear your thoughts on this, because defensively, it was another masterclass. We've talked about it, but it was still the injuries were still there. No Derwin, no Joey Bosa, obviously. All the other injuries on the defensive line. And, Derrick Henry got just over the century mark, but in all reality was primarily held in check. They really slowed down Ryan Tannehill, which me and you thought was, as long as they could hold Derrick Henry, this wasn't really going to be a difficult game, because the passing game with the Tennessee Titans is not really there. But overall, I thought the defense phenomenal. I know they gave up that last tying drive to get it to 14, but essentially played shutout football all game long. And then the offense, had their struggles, as we've seen all year long, but got it done when we need to. I'll obviously give my thoughts, but obviously, as we always do, toss it over to you, your kind of initial takeaways from this big win.
Yeah, Ryan, I think it was really impressive. Again, stringing together now back-to-back quality wins for the first time this year. Chargers now 8-6 in a position like you and I have talked about, even if they can go 2-1 the rest of the way, which should be very, very manageable. This team is going to be in the playoffs with great momentum and an opportunity to make some noise in the playoffs. I think we have to start the conversation with the defense. Drew Tranquill was sensational. Kyle Van Noy was sensational. Kenneth Murray played huge in critical moments. And then Nasir Adderley with that phenomenal pick. I thought those four guys were just flying all over the place, all over the ball, closing up holes on Derrick Henry. It looked like on some of these carries, on some of Henry's 21 carries, Ryan, looked like there were holes there for him to really exploit. And they got closed up so quickly. And it was really those three guys up front that really had a lot to do with it. And then the pressure on both Tannehill as well as Malik Willis when he was in there for a little bit, especially on that blind side of Tannehill. There was just Van Noy in particular and Tranquill were able to kind of get to Tannehill's blind side very quickly. It looked like Tannehill was very uncomfortable for most of that game. He had really no feel. The Chargers were able to disrupt everything. And this is now two consecutive, just absolute gems of performances. And that's the one thing, Ryan. Offense goes up, offense goes down, running game, passing game. Things are consistent. Sometimes things don't work sometimes. But the thing that travels with you still in the modern NFL, especially in January, is your defense. And whether it's home or road, if you are sound situationally on the defensive side, you are going to be a contender and make some noise down the stretch. So I thought the defense was absolutely sensational. I thought there was more of a commitment to the run game, Ryan. 24 carries, 74 yards. We're still not getting the great yards per carry, but Ekeler was starting to show some life on that second touchdown drive. He had that great run where he broke 3 or 4 tackles, really finished that run for 16 yards. That was really his highlight run for me, and then finished it up with just driving his legs into the end zone for that second touchdown. I thought Josh Kelley was terrific. 4's up. Shout out to the fellow Bruin. Did a great job on that opening drive, sealing that deal on 3rd and goal, but just taking what the defense gave him and finished some really tough runs. So I thought they stayed committed to the running game, even when they weren't getting the yards per carry, which is what you and I have been screaming for the better part of a few months now. And then the third element, my third big takeaway, is Justin Herbert coming through in the clutch again. He had the big drive last week with the Dolphins. Ryan, you and I talked about, got that field goal to make it a 2-possession game, essentially end the game. And then here we are, 14 all, 44 seconds to go at his own 23. And those 2 balls to Mike Williams on that final drive, that one out route to the left there for 17 yards, and then that gorgeous rollout to the right, and where Mike Williams sort of pointed, just throw it up to me. And he gave his guy a chance, and Mike Williams won that one-on-one matchup fell inbounds, and that's all she wrote. You just set up the field goal and win the game from Dicker, the kicker, who was a Texas legend and was doing that in college, especially in that Red River shootout game. Now translates that. He did it against Atlanta. Now he does it again here against the Titans. And so those are my 3 big takeaways. A lot to be excited about. I think winning ugly, Ryan, there's a beauty to winning ugly. When you don't have your A game offensively and you can still win a game against a playoff caliber opponent, that speaks volumes for you. Because it's one thing to be able to win a game when everything is clicking and you're throwing your fastball across all 3 dimensions of football: offense, defense, special teams. But to be able to win a game like this, where for long stretches the offense was inconsistent, but to be able to have it when you need it. And you and I have talked about this ad nauseum about the Mahomes, the Rodgers, the Bradys, the Josh Allens, the Burrows. There's a fear that they don't always have to be great, but they're great when they have to be. And Herbert now 2 weeks in a row has been great when he's had to be. And we're starting to see this evolution of him taking those final few steps to being ultra, ultra elite in a face of the league. And it's just so exciting to witness. We're really seeing, I think, a historical moment here for this Chargers franchise, Ryan, where they're starting to win against better competition. It's hard. They're doing it with their defense, and they're doing it on the back of their clutch quarterback. Defense, clutch quarterback, these are the ingredients to be playing late in January and early in February. We're starting to see the changing of the guard here for the Chargers in terms of mentality, in terms of culture, in terms of execution, as being a perennial power. It's the thing we've been waiting for since the start of the year, and I think we're finally there, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head on all of it, and so I don't need to rehash a lot of it. One thing I want to double click on is, you mentioned the clutchness of Herbert there, and obviously phenomenal that, last drive, and I'll touch on more of that in a second. But the thing for me and why this, and I feel like I said this probably last week about the Dolphins game being their kind of best overall game, which, it was, beating a really good Dolphins team and the defense showing out, which we hadn't seen against a really high octane offense. But I think the fact that in this game, outside of that last drive, Herbert really did not play well. I mean, he had 2 interceptions, missed some open guys, threw some balls in the dirt, got kind of happy feet in the pocket, held the ball on too long. I'm not saying he played horrible, but did not have a good game. And up until that Dolphins game, we had talked about, we want to see Herbert make that next step in the clutchness. Obviously, we knew he carried this team and was the reason why this team was 6-6 at that junction. They would not have been 6-6 without a quarterback like Justin Herbert. We absolutely agree with that and believe that. We just talked about, when is that last second heroics going to come back to fruition? But as a team, and to be a Super Bowl caliber team, you have to be able to win when your all-world quarterback isn't playing all-world. And since Herbert's been in the league, that hasn't been the case. When he played bad against Baltimore last year, they got their doors blown off. When he played bad against the Texans last year, they got their doors blown off. When he played bad after injuring his ribs and didn't play great against Jacksonville in week 3, they got their doors blown off. So now finally we see a game where he did not play good throughout the duration of the game, and yet the defense kept him in it. The offense, at least was able to sustain some sort of, drives in the case of scoring 2 touchdowns. At least that was enough to keep them in it. And so that is where we've seen this team now fully evolve into this championship level team. And then we saw, like you alluded to, okay, you can be bad all game, but as long as you're great on one drive, nobody cares. When the Bucks played the Rams earlier this year, Brady was not great in that game by any stretch of the imagination, but he was great when it mattered. And that's why they beat the Rams on that last second drive. And so I remember when it happened, Jamal, and Tennessee goes down and scores. And this will kind of lead me into my next point. Tennessee goes down and scores. And I'm like, okay, well, what was it? 45 seconds left or so. I'm like, all right, here's his moment. 45 seconds left. I think they had 1 timeout, and it's like, that's enough time. If this is those other quarterbacks, which I don't want to keep saying because it's getting old to talk about, if this is one of the other guys, other teams would be saying, oh, you gave him too much time. Ball in his hands, they're going to go down and score. Like, what are you doing? That's your fault on offense for not burning more clock. It's like, all right, this is the moment now where if we can get this done, if Herbert gets this done, now other teams are going to start saying that. Other fan bases are going to start saying that, man, gave Justin Herbert too much time. And he proved it in elite fashion with the 2 throws you mentioned. And then obviously Cameron Dicker sealing it at the end. So that was the culmination of not playing well all game, but being great when you had to. The defense really now 2 weeks in a row showing what kind of defense we all thought this defense could be under Brandon Staley. And so the last point I'll say, and it's about Brandon Staley. And for all the criticism he's gotten this year, which me and you, I think both agree is too much. I mean, yeah, he's the head coach and should get some, but I don't think he should have at any point of this year been on the hot seat. But for all that, in this game, and I'm not saying he didn't make any mistakes early in the game or whatnot, but at least when it mattered, similar to Justin Herbert, he showed elite game management skills from the head coaching position in terms of, okay, when he knew it was down to where Titans are probably going to score, using his timeouts to leave time on the clock. Because guess what? I think everyone thought, Jamal, I don't know if you did, but everyone thought if Tennessee scored, they were going to go for 2. Yeah. We all thought that. They're going to go for 2. They're probably going to get it because they have a 290-pound running back, and all you need is 2 yards. In that instance, they're probably going to get it. So they would go up 1 in that instance. So him knowing that, as well as if they didn't, it's like we need some time on the clock to go down and counter. And so the fact that he did that, gave his offense, gave his quarterback enough time, showed also the maturation of Brandon Staley as a head coach, as a game manager. And we've seen now the maturation of the defense from Staley, but now it's just as a head coach with the headset, really seizing opportunities. I thought most of his 4th down calls in this game were good. Obviously, they converted 2 of them, so that definitely looks better when you do that. But I thought they were useful in terms of when they did it. And yeah, just an overall, like you said, ugly game, but beautiful game at the same time, and a great victory that now the Chargers control their own destiny, sitting in the 6th spot.
For sure, Ryan. And there's a couple things I want to mention that you alluded to. One is the Staley game management. There's 2 dimensions to that at the end of the game. I think it's such a great point and one worth mentioning. You're managing the game to sort of counter what the Titans are going to do. And like you mentioned, that we all were thinking they were going to go for 2. By calling those timeouts, now you make the Titans think twice about going for 2 because there is time left. So you're playing that cat and mouse game to sort of prevent going for 2. But the other piece of that, Ryan, is ultimate confidence in your quarterback. You alluded to it. He was 28 for 42, 313 yards, 2 interceptions. The old problems of Herbert in terms of mechanics in the pocket, some accuracy outside of the pocket, got a little bit loose with the football up until the end of this game. None of that mattered to Brandon Staley because he said, if you give my guy one more chance with 44 seconds, just like we talk about with those elite guys, he's going to make you pay. It does not matter what happened the first 59 minutes and 16 seconds of this game, because the great ones are great when they have to be. I think that's point number 1. Point number 2, Ryan, that I don't think gets talked about enough here in these last few days is these 2 masterful performances by the defense against teams that are wildly different from one another. When you look at the Dolphins and you look at where they hurt you with verticality, with that incredible duo of Hill and Waddle, and Tua doing all this RPO stuff that he did at Alabama and really hurting you deep. And then when you look at the Titans, they're the polar opposite of that. They want to be ground and pound. They want to give Henry the ball 25, 30 times a game and be very selective and mechanical and cautious in their play action game. Those, you couldn't have 2 teams that are essentially wider apart from each other in back-to-back weeks, and you hold them collectively to 31 points over 2 games. So this defense has shown a versatility that is championship caliber, because when you play games in January in the playoffs, you are going to play a wide array of styles. And the true championship teams can win a game 40-30. They can win a game 17-14. They can win in tough fashion in the cold, having to run the ball, having to stop the run. They can win in the dome where it's a track meet. And what the Chargers have now been able to demonstrate over these last 2 weeks defensively is that it doesn't matter what type of team you are. Are you a Ravens? Are you a Titans? Or are you a Dolphins or a Bengals and a Chiefs? We can play both ways. And that versatility, I think, is a dimension we have not seen yet this season And so that makes these championship level aspirations all the more credible.
Yeah. And if I think I saw, Jamal, if the season ended today, which obviously it doesn't, 3 more games, but round 1 would be Bengals Chargers, which would be just such a delicious matchup with Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, and a very different style offense again with some powerhouses. So
LA Marino too, right?
That's
LA
right.
Marino too.
That's right. But hopefully we'll see Justin Herbert become more like Elway, because obviously we know where I lean on that argument. So we need him to sway Elway's side, which he did in this week. So last thing I want to say about Staley, and this is all just, kind of peeling back the onion a little bit, maybe too deep, or looking into things. And I don't know how often you watch, his victory speeches or any coach's victory speeches. And, they're all should be taken with a grain of salt. It's right after a win. You're trying to, be hype guys up, praise guys and whatnot. And I've always enjoyed Staley's victory speeches because he's very poignant. He's obviously very well spoken. He's very passionate, very excited. But this one, not by any means he wasn't excited, but it was much more like matter of fact. Like, hey, we did what we had to do. It was ugly. We fought hard, but hey, we're getting back to work this week because we're going to Indianapolis. We got to show everyone that we're here for real. Like, he basically knew, like, okay, cool. We've won 2 games like we should have been doing all year. Like, this is the team I expected us to be. And it took us until week 14 to get here, but now we're here. And so there's no more sugarcoating it. There's still work to keep growing from this to be where we want to be. So I know it's a victory speech, probably not much to read into, but I could feel a tone shift almost in the way. And even like game ball, gave 1 game ball to Cameron Dicker for the game winner. Love that. But there was no like speech from the players. It was him breaking the team down. You get your victory Monday, day off. We're back to work Tuesday, back in the lab to make this thing great. And so I saw stuff like from Sean McVay last year. Obviously, when the Rams went on the run, you see something like that through history and coaches where they just realize, like, okay, now we're real. Like, we're here now. And it's no more sugarcoating, no more footing around or anything like that. Like, we got to get back to work, get in the lab, make this thing right. So I don't know if you noticed that or heard the victory speech, but that was definitely a little tone shift I noticed. I really enjoyed seeing, because that's where this team needs to be to keep elevating.
Well, Ryan, I think you said it best there. I did notice that, and I think there's an acknowledgement that we're in the window now. When everyone talks about the window of opportunity, the window to contend, we're there. Let's look at NFL history here. And guys, we can't just judge Herbert and this team as being young and on their way. We talked about a player here just a little while ago, Dan Marino. He went to the Super Bowl year 2, never went back. When we talk about Carson Wentz and all of the things that he was able to accomplish in 2017 as an MVP candidate, got hurt, never has been able to get that back. Matt Ryan, for all of his exploits, 1 Super Bowl appearance. The window, Cam Newton, we thought we were going to see Cam in a bunch of Super Bowls. The Panthers were on the rise. Obviously, they ran into the buzzsaw, the Broncos and Von Miller, never to be heard from again. So many teams we've seen in recent memory here where we've seen them once, we think there's a window of opportunity, and it shuts wide. It shuts emphatically on them. And so I think there's an acknowledgement when you look at injury, when you look at free agency, when you look at cap maneuverability, when you look at just personnel, coaching staff, and not getting plucked with other jobs, those windows of opportunity are much narrower than we realize. And the Chargers have a top 5 quarterback. They have studs on the defensive side. Hopefully Derwin gets back, Bosa gets back. Look, this window of opportunity is here and now. There's no guarantees to the future. We saw what happened with J.C. Jackson on a fluke play. I hope he plays again, Ryan, but I have my doubts that he'll ever be back to where J.C. Jackson was before, given the severity of that injury. Things change so quickly in this sport that we can't think of the Chargers as, oh, they're on their way, they're on the ascent, give it 2 years, give it 3 years. Look, I think their window is 2 or 3 years. I think anyone's window in the NFL is 2 or 3 years before you have to completely retool, given the nature of this sport. And I think Staley is not only acknowledging that, I think he's embracing it, and I think he's ready for what's to come.
Yeah. I mean, look at And the Chiefs obviously just won the division again for the 8th year in a row. So it's not like they've fallen off a cliff, but who's to say Mahomes will ever get back to a Super Bowl? Obviously, they'll be a favorite this year, as they should be, but he goes, wins it in year, 2 or 3. They go back the next year, lose, and then didn't make it. I mean, who knows? Now with all these rising stars in the AFC, like you have such a short fraction of time to seize your moment. Look at Matthew Stafford across the way. All those years in Detroit, comes here. They did it in the first year. He may be retiring this offseason, may never be playing again. Obviously, he's much older. It's a very different circumstance, but you have to seize that moment, and seeing how this team has survived what this season has brought them, the adversity they've had to fight through, and now they control their destiny to make the playoffs and go on a run. And let's be honest, if they win out, Jamal, 3 more, they may move up in the rankings. They're probably not going to finish at 6th if they were to win the next 3 and finish with a record of, with only 6 losses. So definitely a lot of opportunity. Really excited where this team is. It was a good win, ugly. I don't know if there's anything much more to mention, but I just think the defense, this is what you wanted to see. And I know fans are still probably upset with the offense, rightfully so. I know you only put up 17 points. There was, again, 8th game in a row now, no points in the third quarter. After the first drive, they just seemed to kind of stall and lose their identity a bit. And so those are obviously things you don't want to see, and especially going into, the last 3 weeks of the season, heading into the playoffs. But if your defense can continue at this level and Justin Herbert can play at his level, and you're just getting more continuity and stuff with Keenan back, with Mike back, with hopefully Josh Palmer. I know he got a little banged up in that game. Ekeler came out that his shoulder x-rays came back negative, so he's okay. Hopefully they can get everything going at the right time, which it looks like they are. But I do, in order for this team to truly be that going into the playoffs where I'm like, all right, this team can beat anyone, which I think they can become that. And they're definitely proving it the last 2 weeks. But for me to truly say, like, I don't care if they're the 6th seed, the 2 seed, whatever, you don't want to play the Chargers. Got to see a little bit more consistency out of the offense, which hopefully we'll see. And these are really good tune-up games for them to get right these last 3 weeks.
Ryan, it's such an interesting point you mentioned. And for the detractors of the offense, I completely agree. I completely empathize. But I think we have to sort of look at the facts of the case here. And the facts of the case are the Chargers don't have an elite running back. Austin Ekeler is a below average running back at this point. And that may set Twitter on fire. But if you look at him at this stage, after the tread that he's had the last few years, you look at the yards per carry, he's great out of the backfield, but this is still a one-dimensional offense. When you look at Ekeler and when you look at Kelley, credit to Joe Lombardi for sticking with the run game as long as he did in this game to sort of maintain a sense of balance. But in order for this offense to get to the next level, they are going to need to upgrade in the backfield. There's no question about it. This is a B minus, C plus type of backfield right now. And so you have 2 choices in that situation. You just abandon the run. You put Herbert out there. You go 60, 65 yards, 60, 65 attempts a game and just chuck the ball all over the yard, which I don't believe is a sustainable way to win a Super Bowl, which is what this team is trying to do. Or you stay with the run to maintain the balance, work off of Herbert, his ability to roll to the right and play action, and throw those laser beams and sort of play off of that to keep a defense in check. So to me, Ryan, ironically, I agree with you. I don't like the Chargers' chances in a shootout 41-38 type game against the Bills and the Chiefs because I actually don't think they have enough variety offensively to do that. I think the identity of this team is lean on that defense, wait for Herbert to have his moments in the game where he's sublime. And I think this is a team that's going to win or play every game in this 23-20, 20-17 type of style moving forward. And I think they've actually found their identity for the rest of the season. But I think it's a very different identity than the identity we thought at the beginning of the season that they were going to be in all of these shootouts. I think that's a recipe for disaster for them moving forward because I don't think they have the horses in the race to be multidimensional. Yes, they have Keenan Allen. Yes, they have Mike Williams. Yes, they have General Electric. Yes, they have Palmer. But all of those guys are in the vertical passing game. You can throw the ball all over. do different stacks, do different bunches. You're going to find your open guy. And all of those guys, I think the recipe there is 5+ catches for those 4 guys moving forward. But I think where this team is still lacking is in that run game. And I think until they can get an elite run scheme, run personnel, I think they're going to have to play these games lower scoring. I think they're going to have to reduce the number of possessions. I think they're going to have to lean on time of possession. And I think it's going to be just a bunch of 20-17, 23-20 type games the rest of the way. And I'm perfectly fine with that as long as they come out on the winning side.
100%. I mean, I hate comparing last year's teams to this year's teams and whatnot, but if you look at the Bengals last year, right, the run they went on, they were not seen as a defensive powerhouse by any means, and they still probably aren't. I mean, they got Joe Burrow, they got Jamar Chase, they got T. Higgins, they got Tyler Boyd, they got Joe Mixon. They had not a great offensive line, but they had a powerhouse weapons. They were winning games in the playoffs 19-16, 27-24, 26-19. It wasn't that electric Bills-Chiefs game, 41-36 or whatever in overtime. When it came down to it, they were winning games on the backs of their defense with clutch performance from Joe Burrow. You look at the Rams run, same thing, 2017, 13-10. I mean, these low-scoring games where the defense led the way, and then Stafford did what he had to do. Stafford and Cooper Kupp, obviously, did what they had to do when it mattered most, winning the Super Bowl 23-20. So the Chargers, as much as this offense has talent, as much as they should be better, we're not saying they should strive to only score 14 points a game by any means, but the defense, the way they're playing, absolutely impels confidence. As long as the game stays close and you have number 10 at the end of the game with the football, then fans should feel real good about their chances. So,
Ryan, it's the analogy is October baseball, right? October baseball is predicated on great pitching, starting as well as bullpen, and then timely hitting. And I think the key to winning in the NFL in January and February is having a defense that you can trust and rely on, that they're going to hold a team to under 20, 23 points per game and keep you in it, and then clutch play from your quarterback when you need it. And when you go back and look at all those great Patriots teams, Belichick always was, we're going to be bend but don't break. And then when the game's on the line, we're going to lean on Brady. You saw last year, you talked about the Rams, you talked about the Bengals. Bend but don't break defenses, rely on Burrow, rely on Stafford and Kupp. That's the recipe to win championships in this modern NFL. And I think the Chargers have this recipe to go on a tremendous run here moving forward. They're probably not going to get a first-round bye. I think that's unattainable, but they're going to be in the wild card. Let's see if they can position themselves for a home game in that first round. If they can finish strong, build that momentum. Remember what happened with the Rams last year, Ryan. They got that first home game. We thought they were going to be on the road the rest of the way. You never know what happens in the playoffs. 1 seeds lose, 2 seeds lose. You could come back to be able to make this run. So I think there's a lot to be excited about because I think they have the recipe. A really good defense that understands who they are, bend but don't break, and then Herbert being clutch when he needs to be. If you have those two things, you have a chance in every game in the playoffs.
100%. And last 2 things, and we'll wrap up this show. One, all that being said, and we've said this for all along, and obviously there's still 3 games to play, and you see how it plays out, but I think Brandon Staley is 100% the man for this team, for this organization moving forward. Again, we can discuss Joe Lombardi and the offensive coordinator later, but I think a lot of people out there, especially when they see Justin Herbert, they want to see, you need an offensive-minded head coach to pair with your great quarterback. You need, the Sean Paytons. You need the Sean McVays. You need this and that. And, that can be said. And obviously every situation is so different. But what we've seen these last 2 weeks is that recipe that Bill Belichick's built, you mentioned, as a defensive mind with a great quarterback, that Sean McDermott's building in Buffalo. Great defensive mind with a great quarterback. And so Brandon Staley, as long as he can get the coordinator figured out and that situation figured out, he is, I think, the man, because now you have this defense that everything you said, everything I said, that can be your foundation, and then just lean on your all-star, all-pro, all-world QB when it matters most. And this team year in and year out will be atop the standings and do that. And the last thing I'll say, this is off that topic a little bit, Jamal. You mentioned Austin Ekeler, you mentioned the running game. We've talked a lot about on our Rams segments then we would love to see Zach Charbonnet and horns. We would love to see him suit up for the Rams. And I still would love to see that. But looking more at it and looking at the Rams' needs, like they need offensive line help. I mean, no one's going to run behind that offensive line next year. Like they need to get after the offensive line. They need to get in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They need secondary help. They need a lot of help in different areas. The Chargers, if they could get a Zach Charbonnet, make him a primary target, maybe even reach in the, I mean, I don't think it's a reach personally, but as a running back, it's a reach because that's kind of high for running back, but maybe even reach in the first round, because if you have this offense and now you add a Zach Charbonnet to that offense, that's like the missing piece. And that's no disrespect to Josh Kelley, no disrespect to Austin Ekeler, but it takes the pressure off of a guy like Ekeler that doesn't need to have, I mean, even this week, 12 carries. Joshua Kelley, 10 carries. Zach Charbonnet, you can give 24 carries if you want, and you can use Ekeler on third and long situations, what he is truly good at. So the more I think about it, as much as I love to see Zach in horns, it makes so much sense for him to have the bolts on his helmet.
Oh, Ryan, I felt that way for a very long time about Charbonnet. I think he is the missing piece to this team being perennial AFC title contenders year over year. Because if you can pair Charbonnet with that receiving group, now all of a sudden you have all of the dimensions. You're elite across all of the dimensions. And now you're truly one of those teams that I don't care if it's 17-14. I don't care if it's 50-48. We can win any which way. I don't care if you need to run, you need to throw, you can do it. You're absolutely complete. And Charbonnet's running style fits so well with the Chargers offensive line in terms of how they open up holes and how Charbonnet looks through holes. And, you know, he's more of a straight line guy through that front four, front seven. And then he loves to kick it out and get that second gear once he gets to the second level of the defense. And I think it would just be so ideal for the run scheme that the Chargers have. It would be a match made in heaven. And I don't think it's a reach, because part of the earlier conversation we had, Ryan, is if this is the missing piece and the window is very short in the NFL, burn the first round pick on him. If this is the piece that's going to get you over the top, what are we doing here? I don't care what historical precedent says. I don't care what shelf life says. It's very easy to rebuild on the other side when you got one or two banners hanging up in the stadium. Your fans will very much understand and be very grateful. So you got to go all in when you can. And I think the last piece, Ryan, about Staley, you know, kind of segueing it with UCLA, I think both Brandon Staley and Chip Kelly are in the same boat where they've had their detractors, they've had their skeptics, and I think both are resoundingly proving that they are the right folks for the job. And for those brilliant offensive minds that are paired with quarterbacks, Ryan, we have to look back in history and say, was there really that much success? When you look at Sean Payton and Drew Brees, for all of the success that they had on paper, won Super Bowl. Yep. When you look at Peyton Manning and all the great offensive minds, part of it was him being the great offensive mind, but all those great coordinators in Indy won Super Bowl. When you look at these great offensive minds, Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, no Super Bowls, no Super Bowl appearances.
Andy Reid
won. So, you know, we love to talk about it. Pairing the great offensive mind with a great quarterback is what salivates us as fantasy football gurus and junkies. But the reality of the situation is the recipe still remains the recipe. You need a Bill Belichick. You need a Parcells. You need a Tomlin. You need one of these guys that is defensive oriented to anchor on, and then you need clutch quarterback play. And I really believe the Chargers have those two recipes to make it happen this year and moving forward.
Yeah, and that's the key, is you need both. I mean, that's the recipe. You need both. You need a star quarterback. You need a defense. You can absolutely still get it done with that offensive line if you have a really great D coordinator. But I just think, they have it. I mean, the recipe's there now. Now they just need to take advantage of it and continue building on it. So there's no sense creating a whole new recipe. Like, if you love jambalaya, why make a different dish? Just keep it going. Like, if you love your tacos with El Pastor, don't go get carne asada. Keep an El Pastor taco, which are my favorite. So anyone out there wants to buy me a Christmas gift, any El Pastor street tacos, the way to go. So with that being said, great win for the Chargers, 17-14. Let's wrap this thing up. We'll be back right before Christmas to preview their next matchup. So we'll wish everyone a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas then. But for Jamal Madney, I am Ryan Dyrud. Thank you for tuning into the LA Football Show. Talk to y'all here, Chargers fans, in a few days.
You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.